Hey everyone, if you're tired of hassling friends and family for fantasy league entry fees, try TeamStake.com. TeamStake provides fantasy sports leagues with a fully customizable payment collection and payout distribution system at no charge. They've got safe and secure transactions, and again, it's completely free to use. Try TeamStake.com. All right, let's talk some football. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere. You can follow us on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. Tags, how's it going today, man?
It's going good, dude. We got an email, and it was funny. I posted it on Twitter. Someone sent into the listener mailbag. They just said, hey, guys, I had my auction draft last night, and I pulled a Bobby. I just stopped reading right after that. It had made my morning, and I was in a pretty good mood. Obviously, there's been some news since then that dampened my mood a little bit, but still a good day, man.
I'm sure that means that he just dominated the draft and beat whatever team Tags would have got. Our guest today is always among the most accurate experts, so we're going to have him help us sort out through these more difficult players to figure out. It's John Paulsen of 4for4.com. That's 4 the number, FOR, and then 4thenumber.com. And he's on Twitter at 4for4_John. John, thanks for taking the time to come on our show.
Thanks for having me on, guys. We're getting real close to week one.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So, like I said, we're going to be covering the 10 most difficult fantasy players to figure out this year. Then at the end of the show, we'll be discussing the remaining running back battles, including Detroit, the Jets, Patriots. First, though, there's a couple news items to talk about.
Whoa. Before we start news, hold on. I actually decided, I don't know when I decided it, but I just decided this morning at some point that I was going to start off the show today with some small segment for you guys. I wanted to do something non-football because it's just, I want to have some fun with you guys. So you know how Bobby does the Does Tags Know Everything segment? We're going to do Does Bobby and John Know Everything segment. And I kind of put this one towards John because I know John's a big music guy. So it's going to be some pop culture for you guys. I'm not a big pop culture guy, but I went back and brought up some trivia for you guys. So are you guys ready for this?
I'm not, but I mean, I guess if we're doing it, I have to be.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
All right. So in 1998, TRL, Total Request Live, was like the coolest thing on TV for teenagers, right?
Never heard of it.
Though boy bands and Britney, Christina, they dominated the charts. What rock band came in and dethroned them for the number one spot for so long that they had to retire the video?
I would have to guess Nickelback.
I'm going to go with, well, I don't know what you mean by rock band. I'm going to go with
98.
Matchbox 20.
It was Korn's Freak on a Leash. They had to retire the video because it was on there for so long. It dethroned the boy bands. I'm proud of that one. But I have one more trivia question for you guys, so it's not Korn related. All right, so here it is. Eminem, Jay-Z, and Tupac are the top 3 selling rappers of all time. Who's number 4?
Why don't you go first, Bobby?
Well, I don't know anything. I don't want to go first. Oh, man. All time?
All time.
Yeah, I don't know any rappers, man. Like Lil Wayne, maybe he's up there now. I don't know. Is he still a rapper?
I don't have a good answer, but I just want to plug Jurassic 5 and their song Quality Control because it's just an awesome song people should listen to.
I thought you guys would have got it. It's Beastie Boys. Beastie Boys are the number 4 selling rappers of all time.
Who are Beastie Boys?
Are you kidding?
I'm messing with you.
Okay. I was like, come on, Bobby, you're better than that.
Okay, so the news items, and this one's a bummer because, Tags, I know you're really high on Hayden Hurst. Obviously, you weren't drafting him in one tight end leagues, but like deeper leagues, best ball leagues, dynasty leagues, you liked him this year. He's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks.
Not happy about it. John, I don't know where you were at on Hayden Hurst. I felt like he was basically going to walk in as the starter, and the fact that Joe Flacco has targeted the tight end position so much over the last couple of years with guys like Ben Watson and Dennis Pitta, I was pretty excited for Hayden Hurst. I think he was easily the most talented of the bunch. But him going down with a foot injury, they're saying he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. This basically ends his season for me because I don't want a pass catcher with foot issues that's coming off foot surgery the same year. I'm done with Hayden Hurst for this year, and I think it hurts his dynasty stock. John, where were you at on Hayden Hurst, and am I going too far on this?
Well, from a redraft standpoint, I had him as a low-end tight end too. I thought that he had a great chance to play a lot of snaps, and that was an offense that had vacated, I think, 10,000 targets from last year. So, yes. Michael Crabtree is going to be the primary red zone target there. I thought maybe Hurst would be the second guy in that role. I'm not writing his season completely off, but he's a do not draft, and then maybe mid-September, if things are starting to trend back up, maybe you pick him up if you're having some tight end issues.
Yeah, I didn't have Hurst all that high. I mean, I've got him, just like John said, I've got him low end tight end too, so not much relevance. With that said, I think this news helps Michael Crabtree and John Brown. So I wasn't getting any shares of Crabtree. I still probably won't, but John Brown, yeah, I'm probably going to reach a little bit higher than I have been just to make sure that nobody else gets the same idea.
Yeah, I think this helps like the running backs, obviously total some more targets. You might see, Alex Collins see a few more targets because of it. Maybe Javorius Buck Allen is introduced back into the offense. But yeah, man, it sucks. I actually thought that Hurst had an outside chance of being like the Evan Engram of rookie tight ends this year. He's my favorite rookie tight end. And to see him go with the foot injury, again, foot injuries are a real problem. And I think it's just going to take time for him to come back. So I'll be on Hayden Hurst next year, but this year, unfortunately, I'm done.
I don't think tight ends like Evan Engram happen very often, and the reason why is because, I mean, how many he had 115 targets. The only reason that happened is because everybody and their mom got hurt on the Giants.
Yeah, no, they definitely did. I mean, that's the thing. We haven't heard much about Crabtree. John Brown we obviously like, but he's not going to be like a 120 target player or anything. And if this offense has massive volume, I mean, the potential for him was there, but obviously now I'm out.
So here's the really big news in my mind, and a lot of people probably saw this and they were like, oh, okay, that's not really too much, but Matt Nagy, he said that Jordan Howard is going to play on third downs. This is huge in my opinion. Do you agree, John?
This is troubling. This really calls into question Matt Nagy's offensive genius. In my opinion, I'm a little worried now. I was really excited about him coming into that team and turning things around after so many years of John Fox and all his decisions, especially on the offensive side. Why do you play a player who is not a good pass catcher on third down when you have a great pass catching third down back on the roster? I don't understand it, and it. You're taking the ball out of the hands of one of your best playmakers, Tariq Cohen.
This is not okay. And honestly, I'm actually putting this down as coach speak. I don't think that Jordan Howard. And by the way, I want to say, John and I obviously, John's a Packers guy, I'm a Bears guy, so we watch these teams very closely. And Jordan Howard, I don't think it could be understated how bad he's been as a receiver the last 2 years. He has been legit bad, and it's pretty hard for a running back to drop the ball as much as he has. So I think this is more coach speak than anything. I think that if he goes on to say that Jordan Howard is just a 2-down back, it's going to make the offense somewhat predictable. I think they're going to have Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen on the field at the same time a lot when it comes to third downs, just to make it so it's not so predictable. I don't see Jordan Howard getting any more than maybe 30 targets this season. And so I continue to say this about Jordan Howard. He's going to finish as a top 12 running back, but he's not going to finish in the top 8.
I'll definitely bet you on that. I mean, he had over 30 last year, didn't he? He had 32 targets. The year before, he had 50. Last year, he had 32 targets, caught 23 of them, so it got better. 71.9% catch rate, significantly better than the 58% he saw his rookie year. I moved Howard up a little bit in my rankings. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to take him over like Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, or Devontae Freeman, but yeah, I'll take him now over Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Jerick McKinnon.
Are you that high on Jordan Howard, John? Do you think that he should be ahead of those guys? I don't personally have him ahead of those guys, but I want to know what your take is.
He's one of these standard PPR guys for me. So in standard, he's an RB1, low end RB1, and in PPR, he's more like a low end RB2, just because the receptions are just not there.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, we're going to move on over and talk about the 10 most difficult players to figure out here in a second. But first, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's show, NFL Game Pass. And Tags and I have been all over this. I mean, we've both used it for a few years, so we knew how good it was. But, as we were thinking about, like, we want to prepare telling people listening to the show about it, we found all these cool new features that we just absolutely love. Like, Tags, have you seen this all 22 coach film? It is just incredible.
It's been the thing to watch. I mean, that's the thing is, like, when people tell me that Amari Cooper sucks and they're box score watching, I don't think that they've ever watched Amari Cooper run routes. I mean, when you use the all 22 film, what you do is you kind of go through and you're able to see what the coaches do. You can watch any player on the field at any time, and you can judge for yourself at that point. Now, does Amari Cooper had issues with drops? Sure. But in terms of him as a pure route runner, as a wide receiver, he's a specimen. He's fantastic. He creates tons of separation, and Derek Carr has a giant target to throw to. Even going to like one of my favorite plays when the all 22 film is that, looking at players like Devontae Parker, I had posted something on Twitter a few weeks back that I went through, and there was a play that I had watched on him from last year with Jay Cutler under center, and he's lined up across from Casey Hayward. Casey Hayward is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Yeah, he's a Pro Bowl cornerback. Like he's one you avoid typically in fantasy matchups. And you're able to see the coach's film on that with the search feature. You just type in Devontae Parker and you see every play he was targeted on or he caught a catch. And you kind of go through these and you could see he created some separation on Casey Hayward going on basically on a go route. And then the ball was underthrown. He came back, jumped, like he timed the ball perfectly, went over Casey Hayward, snagged the ball, and then got pushed out of bounds.
He looked like a wide receiver one, because when Tag saw this, he sent it to me, and I was like, this is so appealing.
Yeah, and there's plays like that with Devontae Parker. When you go through that search function, you can actually go and see them. There were some plays against the Steelers last year. Devontae Parker shows number one traits at times. Is he inconsistent? Absolutely. He's been throughout his career, but looking and watching this stuff, like actually seeing it happen downfield and what he had to kind of deal with on a normal basis from his quarterbacks, I don't think that you can judge the guy too much, which is why I'm not giving up on Devontae Parker just yet.
You know, I was looking, I just found out about the search feature this year, so I've been going crazy on it, and I wanted to see Geronimo Allison because I pulled him way up in my rankings, and I just wanted to see, like, is this warranted? So I went back, and I looked at Randall Cobb, who's a good wide receiver in this league, and I was always thinking, Geronimo Allison's just a marginal talent. He's going to be fine because he's in Green Bay's offense. And I compared Geronimo Allison's tape to Randall Cobb's, and, you know, they're not the same players, but just watching Geronimo Allison, he's going to stick in this league, and if Randall Cobb is going to miss some time with that foot injury, I think Allison is going to step forward and just be a monster. So I'm reaching for him big time, thanks to NFL Game Pass and going back and seeing this film.
Absolutely, guys. Go and check it out. Seriously, you can get a free 7-day trial right now. Watch the rest of the preseason, watch the beginning of the NFL season, whatever you want to do. We have a link for you guys. It's NFL.com/fantasy pros. Go there, get a free 7-day trial. Go check out as much coach film as you want, and I promise you, by the end of it, if you were like a serious fantasy player, or you just want to know the game in general, like if you just want to be able to watch players and have a good take,
or just watch more football
on them, yes, go and do that. And you like the condensed film, like being able to watch games in 20 minutes, like complete NFL games in 20 minutes, that's something you can't replace.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention, by the way. I can watch all 16 games in 4 or 5 hours on Monday morning, and I don't miss anything. Like, do you know how much that helps us as fantasy analysts rather than just looking at the box scores? We see every single play. All right, guys, let's move on over, and I've broken this down by position. We've got I said 10. It's actually 12. So I lied again. This is like the second show in a row that's happened. I've got 12 players lined up. 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 4 wideouts, and 2 tight ends that we just can't seem to figure out. Now, Andrew Luck, I like him because of his upside, but I don't know what to think of his performance so far this season. John, what are you seeing?
Well, I think he's knocking out the rust. You weren't expecting him to come out and just tear it up after sitting out as long as he did. I mean, he's the 10th, 11th quarterback off the board. I think your ADP there at Fantasy Pro shows him as the 9th now. So his stock is rising a little bit, but you know, if he still hangs in that 7-8 turn area, he could be a league winner for you if he's the true Andrew Luck that we've seen in the past.
I think so too. I mean, I'm just buying that upside. Worst case scenario, we find out he's not the same quarterback and maybe he never will be. So what? I cut him and I pick up Dak Prescott for the following week and I pick up Alex Smith the week after that. Most people should be playing streamers anyway, so you take a chance on a guy like Andrew Luck, or you just go for the best streamer in week 1, maybe Dak Prescott or Andy Dalton, and then you figure it out from there. But Tags, do you agree? I mean, he doesn't look great, but he's still worth taking a shot on with that ADP, right?
Well, I just think it's funny how people change their tone on Andrew Luck. I think John hit it on the head. He's knocking off some rust. Like after his first preseason start, people are like, "Oh, he looks like the Andrew Luck of old." You know, they didn't ask him to do too much, and they still. It's like the training wheels are on. This is a brand new offense that he's learning. He's coming back. Yeah, no T.Y. Hilton in the offense. I think it's a small preview. The fact that Andrew Luck is out there getting hit, that's what I'm okay with. I want to see him take some shots down the field. But the best part is that his risk is built into his price, guys. Like, he's being drafted around guys like Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, we can't sit here and pretend that we know Jimmy Garoppolo is a top 10 fantasy quarterback. We've seen Andrew Luck do it before, guys. So I'm not opposed to drafting Andrew Luck. If he falls, I wouldn't take him over someone like Drew Brees. But if he falls to that, 9th quarterback off the board, I feel like the risk is built in at that price. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to it.
John, what is your strategy with quarterbacks this year? I don't know if you're like a late quarterback only guy or if you're fine with taking, Breeze or Newton if one of those guys falls. Is Luck your guy late, or is there somebody later that you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, there's that second tier after Rodgers with Wilson through Drew Brees for me. So I've got Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford a little bit ahead of Drew Brees. And then I think there's a little bit of a drop off there. And then you get into Luck and Garoppolo and Roethlisberger, Rivers, and those guys, Mahomes. I'm willing to take maybe a Stafford. Usually it's Stafford or Cousins that falls to like the 8th or 9th round. And then lately, if Luck is still sitting there, I might nab him just to get a few shares of him because I think he can be a league winning pick.
So like you would go 2 quarterbacks, or you're saying like if you don't get Stafford, you'd be fine with Luck?
No, typically I'll just go one, but best ball, or if I take a Luck, I might nab an upside guy. Like I guess you can call him Blake Bortles an upside guy, but he's got 3 straight top 13 finishes. The offense, the deep receiving core that they have there, I don't think he's going to really be any worse. And he's going so late in drafts. You could pair Luck with Bortles really cheaply and have some upside there from both guys.
Yeah, Bortles runs the ball well too. Do you like Bortles or Trubisky better for floor and for ceiling?
Well, I've got Trubisky at 19, Bortles at 20, so it's really close for me. Earlier in the offseason, I was taking more Trubisky, and lately I've been getting some Bortles because Trubisky's looked a little bit rough in the preseason. I was hoping that he'd be coming out of the gate a lot hotter. I think Bortles is just a more proven player right now, and it's funny to say that because it's Blake Bortles, but you can't
proven fantasy guy.
Top 13 3 straight years. I mean, that's nothing to shake a stick at.
Absolutely. The other quarterback I want to talk about is Jimmy Garoppolo, because a lot of people are really high on him. A lot of people are just kind of like, well, we haven't really seen much. It's just a 5-game sample size against a weak schedule. Now, obviously, he tore up Jacksonville. But, John, what are you seeing in Jimmy G? Is he somebody with a ceiling, or is he just going to kind of be like a Matthew Stafford, Phillip Rivers type of quarterback?
Yeah, he looked the part last year for sure. His last 5 games, 67% completion, 8.76 yards per attempt. So that's all great. And that was not a real talented receiving core he was throwing to. He's getting Pierre Garçon back. George Kittle should be healthy. Jerick McKinnon is a good receiving back. Marquise Goodwin is surging even further ahead than he did last year. So the receiving core should be upgraded, and his second year in the system, things are looking pretty good for him. I have him at 11 below that tier that I mentioned, but that's mainly because you're not sure about him. He's not as proven as some of those other guys.
Earlier in the preseason, I had Garoppolo at number 17. Now I've moved him up to 14 ahead of some guys that people would probably shake their heads about, but I'm looking at Jimmy G, and if you prorate his stats from 5 games out to 16 last year, 4,900 yards, over under 4,400 yards on Jimmy G this year.
Ooh, that's a good number. Man, I'd probably say over, because I don't think they have a great 1-2 down run game, and I think they're going to rely on the short pass more than they are the run than they did last year. But going back to Garoppolo, what he did last year was, it was really impressive, and it's one thing that I struggle with it, because I understand what people want to like in Garoppolo, and I understand why they want to draft him as a top 8 quarterback, but you're essentially predicting him to have the season he had over a full 16 games in 2018, and you don't ever want to pay for that ceiling, right? But one of the stats I did find when going through the numbers this offseason, of the quarterbacks with at least 100 attempts over the last 5 years, Jimmy Garoppolo's 8.8 yards per attempt ranks 3rd best. And again, John mentioned it. He did it with a depleted wide receiver core. Carlos Hyde was not a good pass catching running back. I know he saw a lot of volume, but he wasn't great in that role.
And he just stepped into the offense. Like, he didn't know the playbook.
He was traded there middle of the season. We've seen guys take time to pick up offenses. So the reason that Garoppolo, the reason I do believe he's got some upside and why I would draft him in some best ball formats is because, we saw what Kyle Shanahan did for Matt Ryan. He actually won the MVP that year, and then he regressed once Kyle Shanahan left. So, it's possible. I just don't want to pay for a breakout is all.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey would tell you that Jimmy G is going to have a great season because he loves Shanahan so much. Let me ask you this, though, okay? John, let's say that we simulate 1,000 seasons of the 2018 NFL season. You take the top 10% of Garoppolo's finishes. Where does he end up in that 10 percentile range? Can he be a number 1, 2, 3 quarterback, or... I don't know if he can get above that 5 range. Like, obviously his best possible season, sure, but...
Yeah, if you're not talking about his absolute ceiling, there's paths for I think anybody in the top 15 or 20 to finish QB1, but yeah, I would say could be in that 5 to 10 range. It wouldn't be surprising at all. If he gets to 5, 4, 3, I think that would be a pretty surprising season.
Yeah, because he doesn't run the ball, so he would need even if he gets 4,800 yards, he would need an astronomical touchdown rate to be that top guy. We're talking like 35, maybe even 40 touchdowns. I don't see that happening with this receiver core.
And one other knock on him is that if you're going to draft him as your only quarterback, he starts the season at Minnesota, so that's a rough start.
Great call.
It's not great.
Did not even think about that. Yeah, speaking of Minnesota, let's move on over to the running backs with Dalvin Cook, who has been slowly moving down my board. I had him in the first round maybe 4 weeks ago. Now I've got him like the 21st overall. John, what do you make of Dalvin Cook?
Well, he's they've been holding him out of preseason. Not too worried about that. You have Latavius Murray there, and you wonder how much he's going to play. He sees himself, Murray does, in a competition for the RB1 spot, but I don't really see it that way. Cook was hugely involved early in the season. He was on pace for 319 touches, 1,665 yards, 7.5 touchdowns, and that includes a game where he only played half the snaps due to the injury. So I think he's pretty safe. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be the lead back there and give you RB1 numbers.
See, that's why I had him in the first round, is because I thought, man, this isn't just a workhorse. This is a bell cow. Like, he's got huge potential if he touches the ball that much. But then, Tags, I think it was you that pointed out, Latavius Murray was hurt to start the season. So I don't know if we can really rely on that, especially with him coming off the injury. What are you thinking now, Tags?
Well, that's the thing is, like, I was taking Dalvin Cook at like that 1-2 turn, and I'm a little bit hesitant now. I think I'd rather take some wide receivers. Like, I don't know if I'd rather have Michael Thomas. It depends on what other player I landed, because I usually want to have at least one running back. But Dalvin Cook's been going before Leonard Fournette in some drafts, and I think that's nuts. But Latavius Murray played himself into a bigger role this year. Do I think that Dalvin Cook is going to be the workhorse there? I do, but I think it's going to be more of like a 65-35 split than it will be like an 80-20, where some people are expecting Dalvin Cook to just run away with this job. And on top of that, I don't know if it was the play calling in Washington, but Kirk Cousins on the goal line, if they allow him the freedom to jump over, I mean, he's got at least 5 rushing touchdowns in the last couple seasons. So I don't know if that's just Kirk Cousins. I don't know if it was the play calling in Washington. But if Latavius Murray starts eating up, especially some of those goal line carries that he did so well with last year, it's going to eat into the upside. So I just think it adds a level of risk to Cook. I'm not necessarily staying away from him, because, again, I still think it's like a 65-35 thing. But again, I wouldn't even consider taking him over Leonard Fournette or Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I don't have him anywhere close to Leonard Fournette or Melvin Gordon, and especially Saquon Barkley. I said 21. I've actually got him at 18. I would take all those wide receivers: Thomas, Green, Adams, Keenan Allen. I'd take them all over Dalvin Cook. Just how high do you have him, John? Would you take those wide receivers over Cook too? By the way, we have a lot of people ask, like, what are we talking about when we say our rankings? It's almost always half PPR unless we mention otherwise.
Well, I have him at 10 in PPR. I'm pulling up half PPR right now. I have him at 9, so it really doesn't matter a whole lot. The one player that I have moved ahead of him is Christian McCaffrey, due to all the workload that he's seeing in the preseason. It looks like he's going to be the bell cow there. So I have him over Cook now. Fournette, when you're talking receptions, I've got him projected for 37, Cook for 47. So I think that's the difference there. I have Cook slightly ahead of Fournette. They both have a little bit of an injury concern, Cook with the knee and Fournette with that troublesome foot. But I would say it's pretty close between those two.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the next running back here, Jerick McKinnon. This is the number one guy in the entire list. I just have no idea what to think, because obviously he's banged up right now. We thought he was going to be the workhorse. They paid him like he was going to be the workhorse. And then we're thinking like, oh, I don't know, McNichols is getting involved, Breida's getting involved. What are they going to do with McKinnon? Is he going to have the same roles he had with the Vikings last year? Is he going to be a workhorse, maybe a bell cow?
Well, I think Breida is going to be involved. McKinnon is not a guy who's going to go out there and carry the ball 300 times and have 70 catches and, get close to 400 touches or anything like that. But he could be super productive in half PPR formats. He's an excellent receiver. They certainly paid him like they were going to use him. I mean, this is Shanahan's hand-picked running back. The beat writers there are talking about him playing the Devonta Freeman role in the offense, and that was about 19 touches per game. Don't think he quite reaches that. But now he's starting to go with this injury. He's starting to go in the early third round, and if you can get him as your second running back after getting a pretty good wide receiver in the late second and a stud running back in the first round, you're in pretty good shape.
Tags, I saw McKinnon drop to the 4th round in a draft yesterday, and it just kind of blew my mind. I was like, man, I wish I would have had a late 3rd pick so I could have grabbed him. What do you think about McKinnon? I mean, he was talking about the Freeman role. Freeman was the RB1. He was the number 1 fantasy asset. Could McKinnon be that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think McKinnon's nearly as good as Devonta Freeman, like from a talent standpoint. And from the offensive line, the 49ers have rebuilt that offensive line, and it's moving in the right direction for sure. But Atlanta's offensive line really stepped up when they added Alex Mack there. So McKinnon over the last 2 years, so people look at the beginning of his career and like, oh, he was a good runner in Minnesota before their offensive line went bad. No, he was a good runner on third down. Like being a third down running back like Toby Gerhart when he did it, it's different than being the starter in an offense. And when McKinnon was asked to carry more first and second down work, you saw it over the last 2 years. 309 attempts. That's a big sample size. 3.6 yards per carry. He's not that guy. I mean, he lost the job to Matt Asiata into a timeshare. Then last year, they wanted him to step up. He lost that job to a timeshare to Latavius Murray. So I think we know who Jerick McKinnon is, and he's a good receiver.
We've never seen him with Shanahan, though.
I just think it was a puzzling signing is all. I think that they needed someone who can contribute more on first and second down, and I don't think he's that guy. And I'm not saying that Kyle Shanahan's not going to get the best out of him, but going back to last year when Jimmy Garoppolo took over, he didn't target running backs very much. And that's, again, with little wide receiver help. Now they have Dante Pettis. They're getting Pierre Garçon back. These guys are not field-stretching receivers. They're in that area of the field, so I wonder just how high McKinnon's ceiling is. I think he's a fine PPR, RB2 in PPR leagues. In standard, I'm a little bit more concerned where I would take someone like LaShawn McCoy over him.
I was just about to ask John, who would you rather have, LaShawn McCoy or Jerick McKinnon?
Oh, I don't want McCoy with everything going on off the field with him. That's a nightmare. He probably ends up playing the whole season because legal stuff drags out, but there's enough red flags with the offense and quarterback situation and everything. I mean, and
his downward trend, yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's age. He's got a lot of carries. I mean, there's other things that could happen to him other than the legal stuff. I think once he gets in the fourth round, you have to look at him as a value play because of the volume, and you take that risk. But I don't want him in the third.
Yeah, I don't want him in the third either. And, when 2 months ago, Tags, you and I were talking about Jerick McKinnon in the fourth, and it's like, man, you got to go get him. He's like the number one must-get guy. And then, he's being drafted like 16th, 17th overall. So now that he's fallen to, I think it is ADP 28 over the past couple weeks, I think McKinnon's a fine value, but I can't say I'm too excited if I get him. I'd much rather have Joe Mixon.
Yeah, it's a fine risk-reward area of the draft. I mean, when you draft Jerick McKinnon, you know the risk and you know the upside, right? But I just worry about, the receiving options they have underneath in Pettis and Garçon, that they operate in a similar area of the field that Jerick McKinnon would succeed if he was going to put up massive totals. So, I mean, again, RB2 territory is good.
Now, John, the next two players that we have, Tags and I have opposite opinions on. Neither of us are especially excited about either of them compared to where the ADP is. For those of you listening, that's average draft position. But Jay Ajayi, both Tags and I were really low. Tags is still really low on Ajayi. I've kind of evened out. I'm still not quite taking him at his ADP. But where do you stand on Ajayi?
Yeah, I would say I'm a little lukewarm on him. I ended up with him in a couple drafts, but I got him in the early fifth round, and it's just kind of a value play there. I think he's been going in the mid fourth, I would say, maybe the late fourth. I do think the workload's going to increase significantly with LeGarrette Blount gone. You do have some concerns there with Corey Clement and Darren Sproles maybe stealing some catches and some touches, but. I think Ajayi is pretty good, and as long as he stays healthy, that knee that had a lot of question marks coming out of the draft stays healthy. He had a good yards per carry for the Eagles, I think 5.3. His workload continued to increase all the way up until the Super Bowl when LeGarrette Blount and Clement ended up being the heroes there. I think the intention there is for Ajayi to be that lead back, and I think he's a pretty good value in the fourth round.
Yep, I agree with that. He was actually 5.8 yards per carry with the Eagles, and obviously that's not sustainable. They've got a very good offensive line. I think he's going to get more touches than he did on average last year, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to last the whole season. I definitely don't think he's a workhorse either. That's just not what the Eagles do with Peterson.
Are you guys not worried about this whole report? If you're a lot of people are drafting this weekend, which is the reason I'm going to bring this up. Doug Peterson, Jay Ajayi is not playing this week. He's been out of practice. They're saying he has, in quotes, a lower body injury. We know that Jay Ajayi has some really bad knee issues. and you could see it when he runs. Actually, there was some doctors commenting on it and saying there's absolutely something wrong with his knees with the way that he was running on a breakaway run. That it looked like his gait is what they called it is out of whack. They're saying he has a lower body injury. They're not commenting on it anymore.
That could be like crabs or something. We don't know what that is.
What I'm saying is, where do you draft him? Would you draft him over someone like Derrick Henry this weekend? I wouldn't.
I don't want either of them.
If you need a running back, you need to look at that territory. How about Kenyon Drake?
Well, I would take Drake.
Yeah.
Personally, I have Drake. I'm a little more bullish on Drake than I think my peers are. So
I'm just going to get Marshawn Lynch. I mean, forget all those guys. Just give me Lynch.
I mean, if you're talking 5th round, I'm looking at other running backs anyway. I mean, I'm looking at Chris Thompson. Like, that's the guy I want in the 5th round. So I don't know. I'm not getting up. I'm not ending up with a lot of Ajayi. It's not because of the lower knee injury or anything like that. It's just, I think, the overall workload for him in Philly.
We have not had any expert come on the show and be excited about Chris Thompson, so I'm going to ask you to expound on that just a little bit to see why it is that you like him so much.
Well, I mean, Darius Geis is injured. I think that's he's out for the year. That's like the major hurdle for Thompson and touches. I think his role was even safe as a receiver. Even with Geis there, but now that Geis is gone, you're bringing in Adrian Peterson who can't catch passes, Rob Kelly, Samaje Perine, and none of these guys do what Thompson can do, and he was the number 11 running back in PPR formats, 10 in standard because he was scoring so many touchdowns. The touchdown rate's probably unsustainable, but he can still return good value. I think he's mid-20s, high 20s off the board in terms of the running back rankings. Going in the mid-6th round, I'm targeting him in all my PPR drafts in the 5th.
Yeah, in PPR, I definitely like him. Probably not, definitely not as much as you do. I mean, he's sitting the preseason. He might not be back 100% until November, apparently. I mean, remember he broke his leg, 10 months ago. So I just can't get that excited. I mean, his touchdown rate was unsustainable. Tags, what did your boom bust and everything in between say about Chris Thompson? I just don't know if he's reliable week to week.
No, that he was comparable with Duke Johnson, and I think that's the territory that both of them should be going in. I mean, Chris Thompson, I am worried about him, the psychological portion of his injury, because they are saying that physically he won't be completely 100% until November. Now, he's going to play week 1. Like, he's back. He's going to be back for that. But they're just saying that, like, hearing him in an interview, that was the biggest thing for me, because, like, getting over injuries is like a big, like, mentally is a big thing for athletes. And Chris Thompson was talking about how he's worried that when he makes a cut, is it going to give out? If someone lands on it the wrong way, is it going to re-injure it? He's like, I feel like they did a good job. It's just, I'm in this last step is what he keeps talking about. And that's like worrisome. Like, and now bringing in Adrian Peterson, we got into this giant chat in our Slack chat for Fantasy Pros yesterday about Adrian Peterson. And I've kind of done a complete thing because I was like, Rob Kelly looks good. He's got a chance to beat out Peterson, but
not happening.
I mean, if you're Washington, you don't bring in a name like Adrian Peterson when you have Rob Kelly and Samaje Perine, who are eerily similar running backs to his play style, on the roster already. I think Adrian Peterson's starting for this team week 1. I just think I think they almost promised him that when he came to the team. And Chris Thompson is going to go back to his usual role. Now, Chris Thompson, he's always been a fine player. It's just his touchdowns were severely overinflated last year. So I don't know if that continues, especially with Jordan Reed back on the field, especially with Jamison Crowder, being healthy to start the year. So there's a lot of question marks there, but in PPR leagues, Chris Thompson's always been like that RB3, like the consistent one you could rely on.
John, would you prefer Chris Thompson to someone like Tevin Coleman?
I think so. Tevin's got the upside that, if something happens to Devonta Freeman, now you have a top 5 or top 10 fantasy running back. But we've been drafting him, thinking that was going to happen for the last several years, and it just isn't, or it hasn't. So you're waiting for that payoff, and on the other hand, you have Thompson, who is posting low-end RB1 numbers, until his injury. And I realized that the touchdowns are not, maybe instead of having 6 in 10 games, he has 3. But that doesn't knock him down the running back rankings all that much. I mean, he's producing a lot of yardage. Looks like it was 80 total yards between the rushing and the receiving, and plus all the receptions, obviously. So big bonus in PPR and half PPR.
All right, last running back, then we'll move on over to some pass catchers. Derrick Henry, Tags and I are both low on him. Tags is a little bit higher than I am on Derrick Henry. Neither of us are really getting any shares, though. I just don't know what the Titans are really going to do here. Does he have the upside that we saw in the playoffs, or is it going to be more of a split backfield?
Yeah, I wrote an article. Derrick Henry and Brandon Cooks are being overdrafted, so I probably feel the same way about him as you guys do. There's definitely a path, though, with Deion Lewis, his injury history, that if he goes down, then all of a sudden Henry's back into that 3-down role that maybe we thought that he was going to have prior to free agency and prior to them signing Lewis. But
you're right, and Lewis hasn't really been durable either.
Right. So if they're I could see this totally backfiring, but we're assuming right now that Lewis is going to be healthy, and if Lewis is healthy, he got X number of dollars. I don't know what it was in guaranteed money. I know it was more than $6 million because I looked up all the running backs that got $6 million or more in guaranteed money since the 2015 season. It was like 6 or 8 running backs, and they averaged 14.7 touches the following year with their new team. So DeMarco Murray handled 14.9 touches. So right there at the same level, if Lewis sees that, then you're going to see, Henry with maybe even less because they're going to go a little more pass heavy this offense. I could see Lewis coming in with lower touch numbers. Maybe they hold him to 10 to 12. And they try to get Henry more involved in the running game. But I don't see Henry living up to his ADP right now, given Lewis's presence in the backfield.
Agree. I can't believe how high people are taking Derrick Henry. Now, Tegs, you've come around just a little bit. Is it for the same type of reasons?
Yeah, I mean, I think we know the upside, and I was going to draft Derrick Henry like up in the territory of someone like Jordan Howard coming into the season. I probably would have drafted him over Jordan Howard, as a matter of fact. So when they signed Lewis, it was worrisome, but I've been on record as saying that he's going to finish as an RB2, and I understand year-end numbers. Derrick Henry's probably going to be a top 18 running back, but I don't want to draft him as such just because it's going to be a bumpy road, and the reason I say that is because it's going to depend on game script. If the Titans are winning the game, which as of right now, it seems like 8 wins is their projection, according to Vegas. So it's going to be half and half, where if they're winning, he's going to dominate the touches and he's going to live up to his status. If they're losing the game, he's not, and it's going to be like touchdown or bust. So it's like you have to understand him and Jay Ajayi are in the same tier for me, but I would rather have Derrick Henry because I think he's the better football player. That's basically what it comes down to.
Okay. Well, let's move on over and talk about the wide receivers now. And the first one that I want to mention is Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, we mentioned him a little bit on the wide receiver tier show yesterday, but I also want John's take on Juju because all three of us are kind of low on him. We've got him, I think all three of us had him at wide receiver 25. John, are we wrong?
Well, I'm looking at my half PPR rankings. I have him at 18. I like him. You just look at what he did last year as a rookie. He's got another year of being in the NFL and has that experience now. He started starting in week 2. He averaged 4.4 catches, 6.0 targets for 66 yards, 0.57 touchdowns per game. It's 14.4 PPR fantasy points. Last year that have been top 10 numbers. I think this year you're looking at mid wide receiver 2 type numbers. I think he's a fine value there. 4th round if you miss out on like a Golden Tate. I think Juju's a nice pick there.
Okay, so who are some of the guys you have him above? Because I've got Golden Tate above him as well, but are you putting him ahead of Allen Robinson, the 2 Cleveland wide receivers, Marvin Jones?
I've got him at 18. I've got Allen Robinson at 16, Demaryius at 17, Golden Tate at 19, Amari Cooper, Jarvis Landry, Marvin Jones, Brandon Cooks, Crabtree, Hogan, etc.
Okay, and Tags, remind me again, you've got him at 25. What is your argument against him?
Oh, no, I actually had Juju. I have him at 22, I think.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It was Harmon at him at 25.
In my rankings. So, I know you and Matt had him at 25, and we were all, my issue with Juju is that when you look at everything, Antonio Brown, you're not taking targets away from him, right? So he's going to be on the field. Le'Veon Bell, obviously, is going to see 100 targets because that's what they do at Le'Veon Bell. They're going to use him and abuse him this year because he's gone after this year. He's not coming back to the Steelers next year. I'm confident in that. Then you have Juju there. I love Juju the player. I've been a fan. I was a fan when he came into the NFL. But this year, if he gets to 100 targets, I think we should consider him lucky to get there with all the targets around him. And James Washington is a better version of Martavis Bryant, who, by the way, got targets last year when he was feuding with the coaching staff. They benched him for a game. I think James Washington's a phenomenal football player. So I like Juju. I just love this team in general, and I think it's going to limit the upside of Juju. And my argument yesterday on the show, John, was that what's the big difference between Juju Smith-Schuster and Sterling Shepard? I think Sterling Shepard might be a slightly better football player. I think it's really close between the two. Obviously, Roethlisberger's a better quarterback than Eli Manning, but Sterling Shepard has shown the ability to get it done with Eli Manning. Like when Odell Beckham was down last year and when he played, Sterling Shepard was like a wide receiver 1 most weeks. So it's I'm struggling to find the difference here with Pat Shurmur coming to New York, using the slot receiver heavily like he does. He made Adam Thielen a household name. I just don't know what the difference is between Juju and Sterling Shepard. Outside of the ADP, obviously.
well, certainly the ADP. I have Sterling as a target in the 10th round, so I'm not going to talk bad about him. I think the difference is between the two players. The offense that you have in Pittsburgh has been historically great. They lost Todd Haley though, so that's a little bit of a concern. Roethlisberger is better than Eli Manning. We know this. And then, they don't have a go-to tight end, Evan Ingram. The Steelers don't. I mean, they have Vance McDonald, who's supposed to fill that role, but I don't think he's going to see anything near what Ingram saw last year, what he'll see this year. So I think Juju's, the second option in that passing game. I think I do have him a little bit in terms of targets ahead of Le'Veon Bell, but I just think that the efficiency there. He basically saw 6 targets per game last year once he started starting and played 80% of the snaps like every game after the week 9 bye. He's just a full-time player there, and I think that's a great offense. And he's going to see all sorts of single coverage because Antonio Brown is drawing all the attention on the other side.
Hey, John, let's go Josh Gordon and Sammy Watkins next. Where do you have these two guys?
I don't like either one of them, really, to be honest. Gordon is, yes, he has like top 5 upside. He showed that in 2013. Since then, of a possible 64 games, he's played 10. So that's my issue. And then in the 10 games that he did play, 67 catches, 1,020-yard pace. So that's the pace he played at in those 10 games. I think it was a 142 target pace. So, 67 catches on 142 targets, not efficient there. Now we're getting an upgraded quarterback, we think, but you also have Jarvis Landry coming in. He's going to soak up targets. I mean, he had 160 last year for Miami. I don't know if he's going to see 160 this year. So I have a tough time seeing, probably 140 or 130. So I have a tough time seeing Gordon get that sort of volume that he saw in the last 10 games he's played for the Browns. 140 targets, 142 targets. So, I see him as sort of a 50 to 60 catch, 900 some yard. Maybe he gets 6 to 8 touchdowns.
Okay. And that's if he's on the field.
That's if he's even playing. Now, there's upside from there. Like, I could be wrong. He could come out and just tear it up. But I have him at 30 and half PPR. And, the guys ahead of him right now, Emmanuel Sanders, Randall Cobb, Robert Woods, he probably has more upside than those guys, but he also has significantly more downside.
Yeah, and then Sammy Watkins, you're low on him as well?
Yeah, I think him coming in, I have him at 36. Him coming into the I have him right ahead of Sterling Shepard, actually, in half PPR. I don't spend a lot of time looking at my half PPR rankings. I look at standard and I look at PPR, and so half PPR sort of just shakes out. But Watkins coming in, I think he's the third option in this offense. Travis Kelce's going to soak up a ton of targets. Tyreek Hill is not maybe a big of a target hog as Kelce is, but they're going to still design plays for him. And given how great he was last year, they're still going to try to get him the ball. So I think Watkins is like the third option. You also have Kareem Hunt, who's a pretty good pass catching back. So yeah, maybe he's a little bit better than he was last year with the Rams. I mean, they more intent to get him the ball, and he's having a good preseason and seems to have a good rapport with Mahomes. So he could turn in fantasy starter numbers, but right now I've got him as sort of a fringe wide receiver 3.
Tags, do you want to make counterpoints on either of these guys, or just move on over to the next guy, Michael Crabtree?
No, Josh Gordon, man. It's I think that he hit on a lot of good points. I mean, I would say that he's going to play with the best quarterbacks of his career, whether it be Tyrod Taylor or Baker Mayfield. Like, obviously, the quarterbacks he's played with to this point, like Brandon Whedon, and to know that what he accomplished, like, I think Josh Gordon, the ceiling is top 5, and that's what John's saying. But there is risk in that pick. So, but I think once you get down to that area of receivers, I don't think that Juju comes without risk. So that's why I would take Josh Gordon over, because I know his ceiling, what it is. And it's like, in that area of the draft, I'll live with it just because I want a league winner. And I think that Josh Gordon could be a league winner if he's on the field. Jarvis Landry is going to see targets for sure, but he's also not the same type of wide receiver. He's not going to be a red zone threat. That's not who he is. He was targeted 3 straight times in the red zone last night, and he didn't get it done. Josh Gordon, that's not going to happen. Him and David Njoku are the 2 guys in the end zone. So I like Gordon. Watkins, I think Watkins is going to be fine. I don't think he's going to be a consistent performer. It seems like, I don't even think he's recorded a catch in the preseason yet. So hopefully week 3 of the preseason is a little bit kinder to him. I'd like to see him at least develop some chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, but there's been some beat writers out there that say that Sammy Watkins might be the number 1 receiver in this offense. It's hard to say, man. I like Sammy Watkins, the player. I feel like that people have hated him unfairly a little bit. But it is, again, it's his third offense in as many years. It's really tough to pick up an offense that quickly, and to know that Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes have been there, for a year together. They have chemistry. So I have Watkins down in wide receiver 3 territory. I think you're going to live with some ups and downs, but when he does hit, it's going to be good.
He finished as the number 33 wide receiver last year in an offense that threw 470 passes. He only played 15 games. He just learned the playbook. Like, he got traded right before the season. I think it's a better situation in all of those areas. I mean, they're going to throw the ball a lot more with Mahomes. I don't think that the competition is as high in Kansas. I don't know. I guess the competition is as high, but he's had the whole preseason to figure it out with this offense. So I think he takes a step forward from 33.
Yeah, I mean, he scored 8 touchdowns, though.
My only concern with looking at last year is that it was historically bad or for the receiver position. I mean, you're looking at some of the points that were scored. So, like, a wide receiver 33 finish was probably in the 40s any other year. So,
all right, and final guy, John, we'll let you start with Michael Crabtree, who I can't decide what to do with him.
When I saw him on your list of people I don't know what to do with, or we don't know what to do with as fantasy prognosticators, I was kind of chuckling to myself because I just can't quit Michael Crabtree. I have been drafting him. I drafted him ahead of Amari Cooper last year and the year before and the year before that, and just a PPR force. And I think he's joining a team that desperately needs somebody that can get open and convert targets into catches. John Brown's emergence probably helps him a little bit in terms of loosening things up. So I'm not too worried about Brown eating into his targets. Brown's not going to be a high target, but if he's playing well and is being effective, then the defenses are going to have to account for him. That should open things up for Crabtree. And obviously the Hayden Hurst injury opens up some things too over the middle for him in terms of more volume potentially and in the red zone. So I really like Crabtree I'm getting him a lot in the 6th round. I really like that value.
Are you concerned? So my concern with Crabtree here is that Joe Flacco's never really been a touchdown passer. Like, he's never been a big touchdown guy. I think he has like 2 years over 23 touchdowns or something like that. Crabtree, he's got just one season where he totaled more than 1,003 yards. So it's like he's never been like a big yardage guy. He's always been like a red zone threat. Each of the last 4 seasons, he's been under 7 yards per target. So he's not gonna like break big plays. He's not that guy. He's gonna average 10 to 11 yards per catch. He was always getting the touchdowns though. It's like there's each of the last 3 seasons, at least 8 touchdowns. When was the last time Joe Flacco did that? That's where I'm struggling with Crabtree. The reason that I've moved him down just a little bit, because I think I was waiting to see if John Brown was healthy, and the fact that he is healthy and the fact that Joe Flacco knows he has Lamar Jackson breathing down his neck, I think that's going to force Flacco to take shots down the field that he may have played it safe on in years past. I just worry about the touchdown upside with Crabtree.
I have him projected for 83 catches, 932 yards, and 5.5 touchdowns, and that puts him at 24 in half PPR. Now, he's like one of these boring guys like Larry Fitzgerald who just posts numbers and maybe doesn't have top 5. I mean, Fitzgerald, I guess, technically has top 5 upside PPR. But I mean, there was years in the past where we were getting Larry Fitzgerald in the 4th or 5th round at the turn and in PPR, and it was just ridiculous value every year I took it. And Crabtree's kind of been that guy the last couple of years for me, and he is a year older and all that, but I think he can get there to those wide receiver 2 numbers even without the touchdowns. I think 5.5 touchdowns is actually pretty low projection, I think, given what's going on there and who's going to be catching touchdowns for the Ravens this year.
Yeah, I looked back through the last 3 seasons, and nobody has 6 or more receiving touchdowns. The last guy that did it was Torrey Smith back in 2014. He actually had 11 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst definitely is going to change the projections a little bit. I'm going to have to go back because I don't think Nick Boyle is someone who's going to get the targets that Hayden Hurst was going to. I currently, before this injury, I had Crabtree at 792 yards and 6 touchdowns. So I had lower yardage. I actually had a little bit more in the touchdown, even though it wasn't much. But I think I'm in the same tier. I mean, projections are one thing, but having someone on your roster is something different. And it's like, if you have some upside options elsewhere on your team and you're looking for a safe wide receiver 3, I think Crabtree will be fine there. It's just, I don't think he's a league winner. So it's just like, what are you looking for? And you have to get some upside somewhere on your roster, because if you fill it with too many guys that are just like, volume guys, I'm sure you agree, John, is just that if you get that, it's good enough to win you like 3rd or 4th place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's reasonable, and I do usually get upside, but I'm going later in the draft for that upside. I like my first 6 or 7 picks to be solid guys, but that's why I would be willing to take Gordon here at 6 because of all the off-field stuff, but I know he's going fourth or fifth round, end of the 4th or 5th round, and I'm just never going to get a chance at him. So
Okay, let's go 2 tight ends here. First one is Greg Olsen, and I found myself getting my first share yesterday, and I felt just sick to my stomach. I'm like, this is going to be a disaster, but it was such a good value, I couldn't help myself. I don't know, I'm not super low on him. I don't want him. He's so risky for where he's going. What do you think, John?
Well, I like Greg Olsen in general. I was really happy when the Bears traded him away because he kept killing my Packers. They gave him away for a song, I believe, too. So, yeah, that was a terrible decision. But I digress. Olsen, I have him at 4.5 PPR. The problem is where he's going in drafts. I just really like the next tier of guys, Jack Doyle, Trey Burton, David Njoku, that are going, 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th round. I just find myself, if I'm not getting Ertz in the 3rd, then I'm just waiting on tight end position unless somebody drops to the 7th, 8th from this next tier, Olsen, Ingram, Walker, Graham, or I'm just waiting until the 9th and drafting Jack Doyle.
All right, John, I have a crazy stat to tell you. The one that I found recently, and it's really had me souring on Greg Olsen. So you believe McCaffrey is going to be in line for he had 113 targets last year. Can we lock him in for at least 100 targets this year? Is that fair?
Probably. I would say 95 to 100. I think he's getting pinched a little bit as well in the passing game because they're going to probably run him more. And then you've got DJ Moore and Devin Funchess and a healthy Greg Olsen back. Maybe he gets pinched a little bit. But yeah, the targets are tough there.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the stat I found was that in 2016 and 2017, there was not one running back tight end duo in the NFL to combine for more than 185 targets. So when you're looking at that and when you see that, doesn't that concern you? It's like, okay, if McCaffrey's getting 95 or 100, that means Olsen's capped at 85 or 90 targets. And on top of that, DJ Moore's like an underneath option they haven't had in the offense. Curtis Samuel didn't play last year. I'm really concerned about Greg Olsen. I actually released his player profile this morning on the site. His last 12 games before injuring his foot. So before even all this took place, even without Christian McCaffrey, without all these other question marks, DJ Moore and all that stuff, his 12 games prior to injuring his foot, he had 491 yards and 1 touchdown. He's not a touchdown scorer. I think his career high is 7 touchdowns. And if he's not getting any more than 85 or 90 targets, I would rather take someone like Trey Burton or Jordan Reed over him.
Yeah, he came back from his injury, though, and had 39 targets in his final 4 games. He had 12 targets for 8 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown against the Saints. So
that was that one game where it was like, you got to be kidding me, Greg Olsen.
That was the only time I didn't start him. I picked him up, and I was like, yes, I got Greg Olsen. And he was so horrible, and I didn't start him that week.
And then Norv Turner's in, too. So we know how Norv Turner likes the tight end position. That's more probably Antonio Gates than Greg Olsen. But
yeah, for sure.
I've been finding myself suddenly just taking Jack Doyle everywhere, and I feel great about it.
I love Jack Doyle.
I got super low on him when they were talking about using Eric Ebron all over the place, but now this preseason, it's very clear it's Jack Doyle. And they've got not really much behind T.Y. Hilton. I know Ryan Grant's there, and I like getting him at his ADP, but I think Doyle could be awesome this year.
Yeah, we should thank the Colts for signing Ebron because it's kept Doyle, his ADP, very reasonable. And people are not, people that are not in the know or paying attention to Twitter and looking at the preseason snaps, he's playing 90% with Andrew Luck. Ebron is playing less than 30% of the snaps with Luck. Even if Ebron starts to get to be a 50, 60, 70% player and they're running a lot of 12, Doyle's going to be out there on the field, and they don't have a whole lot after T.Y. Hilton. They lost Deion Kane, who was kind of having a chance to come in and get some targets as well. So they're just looking for playmakers outside of T.Y. Hilton. I think Doyle will be the number 2 option there.
I just moved Doyle way up in my rankings. Not just, but over the past 2 weeks, I've been moving him up, and now he's at tight end 7 for me. Tags, just how high do you have Jack Doyle? Would you take him over like Jordan Reed or Jimmy Graham?
No, he's right after that tier. Like, he's my number 11 tight end right now. He's just after the top 10, and it was funny because I actually had him in the guys where it's like, okay, get a top 11 tight end, and then Ebron coming in, I'm like, I always said it was Doyle, but then I was like, I can't not pay attention to the fact that Ebron fits more of that move tight end body sculpture, like in terms of like Doyle's a better blocker. So it's like I stayed open to that idea, but the fact that Jack Doyle's out there catching passes, it doesn't surprise me. So I'm okay with having him as a starter in a 12-team league. I would still probably prefer to have a top 10 tight end. I mean, I actually moved Olsen down to that last tier of the tight end ones where it's like, I know there's some safety there, but I just think that he's capped in terms of his upside. With limited targets, a quarterback who can't seem to complete very many passes. Like just once in his career, he's completed more than 60% of his passes. So, not a high touchdown scorer. Give me Jordan Reed, give me Trey Burton, and where they're going in drafts, I'll get him a lot of the time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I got Trey Burton higher than Jack Doyle too, which I can't imagine there's any expert who has Trey Burton higher than I do. I've got him tight end 6.
I'm at tight end 7 right now.
Do you? Oh, wow. Okay, where do you have him, John?
I have him at 10. I have Graham at 7, Doyle at 8, Rudolph 9, and then Burton at 10.
Okay, so are we crazy? Or is it kind of close? Because I think the 6 through 10 range is really close.
Yeah, I mean, my tier, that the Olsen, Ingram, Walker, Graham tier, and then I just think Doyle is a screaming value because you get Walker in the 6th round, Graham in the 6th or 7th round, and then you can get Doyle in the 9th. So I just think he's the one I'm ending up with the most, and I have him a little bit ahead of Burton, just because I think there's more upside in that offense. He plays with a better quarterback. I think Burton's going to have a fine year. I think he's going to have a top 10 season. I just think the value is better with Doyle. I've got him ranked higher, and he's going later, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I like Walker more as well than Doyle or Burton. I've actually got him as my number 5 tight end if he was healthy, but he's got the injury. It's undisclosed. They're not telling us what's going on. He's not practicing. He's not playing. I don't know when he's going to be back. Can you still draft him in the top 8 or 9 rounds, not knowing what's going on?
Yeah, because usually if it's season threatening or season ending, you know. So it's probably just a thing he needs to get over. He's probably going to be there. It's a toe, it looks like, right? So he's been walking gingerly. He's been dealing with this stuff for the last 4 years, and he's out there catching 65 to 90 catches over the last 3 seasons and playing. He's only missed 1 game the last 2 seasons, so he'll be out there.
I think I'm going to move him on my list right now. It's a good point. Okay, so let's move on over and talk about some of these remaining running back battles. And man, this is annoying, but it's also kind of cool because then you can get some values late in your drafts. Like, who knows who's going to start in Detroit? If it's Blunt, I thought he was going to get cut. If it's Blunt, you're getting him super late. If it's actually Amir Abdullah, he is free right now. So what's going to happen to Detroit? Is it definitely Kerryon Johnson, or do one of these guys have a chance?
Well, he had such a good preseason debut and then came back and didn't do a whole lot in his second game. But I think they want Johnson to be the starter there. The Blunt signing kind of reminds me of Adrian Peterson last year signing with the Saints, even though they had then they drafted Alvin Kamara and moved up to draft him. Similar situation here, I think, with Johnson. He's the guy I would want in the 7th round. I think he's still a nice value there. The offensive line should be better as well.
I can't find myself taking him in the 7th round when there's someone like Carlos Hyde there who I think it's pretty clear that he's the starter. Now, Tags, do you disagree with me?
No, I'd take Hyde over him now. I think it's clear. I think we've seen that over the last few preseason games that Hyde is the clear-cut starter there. Nick Chubb is firmly behind him and Duke Johnson. It's going to be he's kind of like taking on that Crowell role. They wanted someone who can catch passes, and I think that Hyde, as much as he's limited in the passing game, he might be better than Chubb. I would take Hyde over Kerryon. I do think Kerryon's ceiling is higher, though. Kerryon, if he gets that 3-down job, if they trade Amir Abdullah, if they cut LeGarrette Blount, there's a lot of ifs here, right? I just don't want to take someone who's attached to that Lions backfield that it seems like everybody has their own role in that offense, and Kerryon's kind of like the do-it-all guy, which is why I believe he leads the team in touches, but as of right now, it's too muddy to take him higher than Carlos Hyde.
I was just going to say that he's going in the 5th round now.
Yeah, he's moved up a lot.
Yes. So I don't think that's a decision that fantasy owners are going to have to make unless they're in a friends and family league at the local bar.
Yeah, it's more like Kerryon versus like guys like Sony Michel, Ronald Jones. That's basically who you're choosing between right now.
Definitely Sony, man. I'd take Sony over Carlos Hyde. Give him to me. What about like Chris Carson or Marlon Mack? I mean, we need to talk about both of these too, the Seahawks and the Colts. I think it's pretty clear Chris Carson's starting. They're saying he's a bell cow, though. I moved him way up in my ranks because, you look at Rashad Penny, and it looks like he ate Rashad Penny. So I can't see Chris Carson losing this job at this point. And Penny's 240 pounds now?
Well, Penny, I would just say that first drive that they came out in the preseason, they were swapping him in and out.
Yeah, and Penny didn't look fat.
Yeah, I don't think Carson is going to be the bell cow there.
I mean, Tags, I don't know what to tell you. He is 240 pounds. I wasn't exaggerating.
But he didn't look fat, though. He didn't look like Eddie Lacy. Like, that's the thing. We know Eddie Lacy was like a big dude, right? Like, but like when you watch Rashad Penny in that first preseason game, I didn't walk away thinking like, oh my God, that dude's big, like overweight. Like, he moved pretty well. Like, he looked like the guy I thought he would. I think it's a timeshare. I think Carson leads the timeshare for a little while. And then I think eventually if he has a bad game or two, they're going to go with Penny because they kind of have to.
I guess so, man. I don't know. I want nothing to do with a 240-pound rookie who weighed in at 222 pounds.
Well, Leonard Fournette was, what, 235 last year?
Yeah, Leonard Fournette is he's the fastest player in football.
Yeah, I know. I love Leonard Fournette.
He's so awesome,
I mean, I just wanted to say that he was like 235 pounds.
Yeah, he was. I don't know. Maybe I'm overlooking Penny on this thing. I mean, I had Penny in my top 20. Now I've got him down at 36. I can't draft him. And somebody else that I've moved down a lot is Marlon Mack. I mean, he hasn't been playing, but he's going to end up the starter, right, John? Or is it maybe going to be Christine Michael or Jordan Wilkins?
Well, two things. I watched, you were talking about Game Pass. I was actually going to chime in during your ad, but I watched Game Pass, watched all of his second half touches from last year, from the second half of the season, and I was really impressed. Like, I heard lots of discussion about how he doesn't like to run between the tackles. I didn't see any of that. I saw a really versatile player who could play on all three downs. Now that Nyheim Hines can't hold on to the football, I think Jordan Wilkins is probably the biggest threat there to his job, but Mac's been, sidelined with a hamstring injury, may not be ready for week one. You can get him now in the 7th, 8th, 9th round sometimes. Mac is falling so much. I think that's great value there. And then Jim Irsay came out and said, he has his faults, Jim Irsay, but he's the owner of the team. And, he said he was the one that he sees, or Mac was the one that you could see getting 1,500 total yards. So I think he would know at least what they're planning to do, being the owner of the team.
Yep, Mac is a value. Like, I legitimately, I'm in the middle of my listener league now, actually, and I ended up taking Mac at the ninth round, the second pick in the 9th round, and I was ecstatic about that. Like, as my number 4 running back, I was just like...
That's a great number 4 running back. If you have to rely on him, I can't do that, but...
Well, the thing is like, here's the thing, Bobby. I think his hamstring injury might be the best thing that ever happened to him. And the reason I say that is because there's been nobody who stepped up. Like, Jordan Wilkins isn't getting the starter reps. And Christine Michael, he's been on, like, 3 running back needy teams. Like, teams that were desperately in need of running back help.
He got cut from all of them.
That's what I'm saying, is like, Christine Michael, I've moved on. And this is a great offensive line. Marlon Mack has boom potential. Like, legitimately, he has legit lightning. Like, he can break long runs. You might see him run for an 80-yard touchdown run in week 1, and then people are going to be like, oh my God, how do we let this guy fall? Because the Indianapolis offensive line is all of a sudden pretty dang good.
You're right. Yeah, it definitely is. Where do we go next? Let's go New England. Sony Michel's bound to take this over, right, John? Please tell me I'm right.
No.
Oh, no, I have all the shares. Please don't. Oh, man.
I mean, maybe long term, but I don't know that first round. I mean, he's a first round pick, so that's great for New England. They really went against type and drafted a first round running back. But fumbling issues in college, he kind of cleaned those up in college, so maybe he's okay. But he's been injured the whole preseason. Now he's missing reps. I'm a Rex Burkhead fan. I'm a James White fan. There's going to be roles for both of those guys, I think. And Rex Burkhead, to me, in the 5th, 6th round, you can actually get him in the 7th, I think, in some drafts. I really like him as an RB3, RB4 type. James White, PPR formats, going to have his big games. You can kind of predict when they're going to be, when they're playing tough rush defenses or potentially playing from behind. So you can use him as an RB3, RB4, and you can get him in the 9th, 10th round now. And he looks really good in the preseason. Obviously, that kind of ruined it for the value. But Michel has a lot of work to do to get back into this offense, and I don't know that he's going to be able to hold on to the job once he wins it, if he wins it.
Yeah, we've seen New England produce multiple useful running backs, and I just wonder how high that means Sony Michel can end up. I mean, LeGarrette Blount, back a couple years ago, he was a top 8 running back, if I'm remembering right, and they had other pass-catching backs as well. Tags, do you think that's his ceiling, or is it just not going to happen?
I'm still a believer. I think talent wins. I think Rex Burkhead's fine. I've been on record as saying that I think that both can have viability. The fact that Michel is likely to not start at the beginning of the season, I don't know. This whole knee thing, we're still not getting complete details about it, when he's going to return to practice. If he's going to miss the first couple weeks of the season, yeah, you have to bump him down outside the top 30 running backs, just because that's a tough time to pass on running backs like that. But if we hear that he's going to be back for week 1, he just might have to work his way into a bigger role. I'll still take Sony in the top 30 running backs because, again, the offense that he's attached to. James White, I like James White as a player, but the Patriots, they've always been hesitant about using him in a bigger role unless they needed to. Like, when you go to the Super Bowl, he played fantastic. I like James White, the player. Rex Burkhead, I feel like, is a utility guy. I think he's going to be used more in the slot than anything this year, because when you look at what New England's trying to do, bringing in Jordan Matthews, Eric Decker's reportedly having issues in practice. It's like they don't have very many receiving options in this team behind Rob Gronkowski and Chris Hogan. So I think they're going to use Burkhead in a certain role. So going with Sony Michel in the first round, I just think it was the Patriots telling you there is a shift going on with their franchise, that they know Tom Brady is nearing the end and they needed to start to go in a different direction. Sony Michel's like the first 3-down running back that they've had in a long time. The fumbling thing, I mean, Rex Burkhead fumbled last year versus Oakland. Belichick didn't bench him. I think Belichick, like, there's certain players that Belichick doesn't feel are good enough to deal with the fumbles, and I think that Gillislee fell into that situation. I think Stephen Ridley fell into that conversation. But as a first-round pick, they need to get the most out of that kid. So I do believe Michel has legit RB1 upside if he gets back on the field.
All right, let's move on over to the Jets, then we'll close out with the Packers. Is it Bilal Powell? Is it Isaiah Crowell? What do you think, John?
I think Bilal Powell is the value. I think he's going RB 54 right now.
Ooh, wow, he's going that low? I've got him top 35.
I was just looking at your ADP. So that's great value. 12th, 13th round, you can get Powell. He's playing 10 with the starters, and you got Elijah McGuire's out, so he's going to be the third down back as well, and he's a pretty good runner as well. So it's not like Isaiah Crowell's that much superior to him on first and second down. So I think Powell is the value there. And Jets, does he lead the team in touches? Maybe, but certainly from a value standpoint compared to Crowell, I think he's the pick, the guy you want there.
Yeah. Yep. And Tags, I know you definitely agree. So we'll move on to Green Bay. What do you see happening when Aaron Jones comes back, John?
This is.
Oh, yeah, you're a Packers fan.
Yeah, I'm a Packer fan, so I'm glad they have all this talent and different skill sets there. I think Ty Montgomery is the best all-around back. Jamal Williams is the best pass blocking back. He also made 3 catches in the passing game for 25 plus yards. A couple of them went for touchdowns, even longer, 50, 70 yards, I think. So if he can increase his yards per carry and be a little more efficient in the running game, it looks like he's going to start. Rob Domowski from ESPN said that they're getting ready to name him the starter. And if that's the case, then you need to move him up. And I have him now, as a sort of a 6th, 7th round pick. And, maybe we should have been taking him all along. Jones, I think, is the best pure runner. But he's got the 2-game suspension. He's got the injury. He doesn't do much in the passing game. He's not the best pass blocker. And that's a big deal when you got Aaron Rodgers back there to protect.
Tags, what do you think, man? I mean, I know you've talked about Aaron Jones, it being a good situation for him because of their first 2 games, but the more I look at it, I just don't know if they're going to use him even if he is the better runner.
Well, I mean, it all comes down to how the coaching staff feels, right? Mike McCarthy's been on record. I mean, as much as we may disagree with it, he's been on record as saying that pass blocking absolutely matters for his running back. So to know that Jamal Williams was the better pass blocker, it's kind of no shock that he would be announced as a starter. And Aaron Jones giving him an opportunity over those first couple of weeks, without him on the field. That's the thing, right? But going against the Bears and the Vikings is no prize for Jamal Williams. But again, playing with Aaron Rodgers has its benefits, and he may look better just because he has Aaron Rodgers under center. I don't really want to judge Jamal Williams or Aaron Jones based on what they did last year, in a different offense. When Aaron Rodgers is on the field, it's a completely different offense, and I expect it to be higher scoring. You do want the running back who's part of this backfield, so Jamal Williams is obviously the one who gets the first shot. So we saw Eddie Lacy, finish as a top 5 running back multiple times alongside Aaron Rodgers. So I'm not shy about drafting Jamal Williams as a top 30 running back anymore.
Do any of these guys, John, have a top 5 or even just top 10 running back ceiling?
Well, I think Williams does if he's the every down back. You certainly could see a scenario where he's getting 8 to 10 touchdowns, catching 2 or 3 more touchdowns, and gaining 800, 900 yards rushing. Certainly. But I think there's too much talent there to give any one guy all the touches.
I think that's fair. I think that makes sense. Tags, why don't you close us out with stat of the day, man?
I'm going to do a repeat stat of the day, just because this one needs to be repeated. A lot of people have asked me about Alvin Kamara recently, and whether or not they just don't feel great about attaching their number 6 or number 7 pick to a guy who might not see 175 carries. But when you draft Alvin Kamara, think of it this way: you're getting a running back and a wide receiver. Alvin Kamara's 826 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns last year accounted for more fantasy points than Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, and Jordy Nelson. So you're essentially getting a wide receiver 3, and you're getting a potential, RB2, RB1 combined as one player. So when you're drafting Kamara, don't think of it as you're drafting just a running back. You're drafting him for his receiving prowess.
Interesting, man. So, John, where do you have Alvin Kamara? Do you have him ahead of Melvin, Gordon, Fournette, Barkley?
I do. I have actually moved him ahead of Ezekiel Elliott in PPR with the offensive line problems that Elliott's having. Actually moved Elliott below. That's basically what happened. Kamara didn't change much, but I think he's going to see a huge workload the first 4 weeks. Not huge, but bigger with Ingram out. And PPR, you can't go wrong with Kamara.
All right. Well, guys, that's all for today's show. John, as always, thank you for taking the time to come on, and hopefully you get another great accuracy season. I'm certain that you will.
I'm going to do my best. Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's our pleasure. And thanks to the sponsors of today's show, TeamStake.com, where you can get a fully customizable payment, collection, and payout distribution system, again, for free at TeamStake.com. And thanks also to NFL Game Pass. They've got all those tools you can use, the search feature, condensed game tape in 20 minutes, all 22 coach film. Everything is amazing. You can pause it, slow it down, break down the games. Best of all, you can get a free 7-day trial with NFL Game Pass. Sign up now at NFL.com/fantasypros. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.